Good evening. Welcome to the Falls Township Zoning Hearing Board for today, December 12th, 2023. Can everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being patient with us tonight. I would like to make some introductions. To my left, I have Bob McKay. To his left, I have Nastasha Raisley. On my right-hand side, I have Keith Bibleymeyer, our solicitor. On his right, I have Aaron Mackey. Over to his right, I have Karen Brandorf, who's our court reporter. To her right is Chris Kilmer. He is our alternate member for this evening. Representing the township, I have Matt Takita. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I have Bill Kernan on Zoom. Representing the township, I have Matt Takita. I have also Diane Bure. And I also have Harrison Fontick, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He is the solicitor for the township with us this evening. We're going to start with petition number 1. Mark and Kelly DeBolt, 1 North Turn Lane, Levittown, Pennsylvania, 19054, TMP number 13-042-22, zoned NCR, requesting a dimensional variance to allow a stone driveway, section 209-43.1. Mark or Kelly, are you here? Would you like to please come up to the microphone if you are?
Excuse me for one moment. Do you have to announce the people that are oh, never mind. They're going to come in themselves. Never mind. I'm sorry.
And before I do that, I would like to have, talk about our executive session.
Yes. Madam Chair, just before we proceed with this application, if we can just state for the record that the board took an executive session. They discussed agenda items, including a continuance. I'm sorry, which was a continuance request is now going to result in a request to withdraw. And that was the extent of the executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you please state your name and spell it for our court reporter so she can swear you in? Can you please speak into the microphone? I'm sorry.
Yes. Kelly. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Madam Chair, if we can mark some exhibits, we'll mark as ZHB1 the application for zoning appeal, along with the accompanying statement, signed by both Mark and Kelly DeBolt. 2 is a plot plan. 3 will be 3 black and white photographs on 3 separate pages, one of which shows the 30-foot easement. 4 is a letter from Lower Bucks Joint Municipal Authority in regards to this property. 5 will be 5 pages containing 5 color photographs, one of which shows the property was posted as required. 6 will be the applicant and neighbor notification letters sent from Falls Township. Those letters are dated December 4, 2023. 7 will be proof of publication in the Bucks County Courier-Times, showing this matter was published November 28th, and then again December 5th, 2023. Lastly, will be exhibit number 8. This is a certificate of occupancy issued to the new owners of the property. That was given to the current owner, or the new owner, Erkan Kapar, C-A-P-A-R. First name is E-R-K-A-N, for 1 North Turn Lane. It's my understanding the property was recently sold to the Kapars, and this was issued, this certificate of occupancy was issued to the new owners. That is all the board exhibits. I'm satisfied the appropriate notice have been satisfied, and this matter can proceed.
Thank you, Keith. Okay, Kelly, how can we help you today?
So the water municipality came out and apparently issued a violation for our driveway. So that said driveway has been in place, I don't even know when it was placed. We bought the property back in '97, that driveway was there. 2018, the municipality came out, they had us remove all the trees in the backyard, but never said anything about the driveway. So when we went to sell the house, all of a sudden when the municipality came out, they said now that the driveway was an issue. The new people that are coming in want to keep the driveway there. So I did some research and we, saw that you could have gravel there. It's not considered a permanent structure. So we're asking to allow them to put in a gravel driveway instead of having an asphalt driveway so that that same area can still be used as the driveway and serve a purpose and still be usable and still have access to whatever needs for the water authority and not be considered a permanent structure.
Okay. Is there anything from the township regarding this?
Nothing from the township.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to board comment. Bob?
Nothing to add.
Nastasha? Bill?
I have nothing.
Aaron?
So my question is really just actually back to the township. What was the issue that this, so I'm looking at the motion to approve and it says a dimensional variance. But I haven't heard anything about that there's a dimensional issue. This is more just an existing driveway being replaced to gravel.
So it's not dimensional as far as it being the length and width of the driveway. It's not a use variance. The way it was worded, it could have just said it requesting a variance for a gravel driveway. The ordinance requires that all driveways be paved. They're requesting a stone driveway. So that's the only issue.
Okay. Okay, great, thanks. No other questions, thanks.
Okay.
And I don't have any questions at this time. Do I have a motion to, I'm sorry, excuse me, is there any public comment for this? I don't see anybody. Do I have a motion to accept this petition?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve. I move that the application of Mark and Kelly DeBolt requesting a dimensional variance from section 209-43.1 of the Falls Township zoning ordinance be granted to allow a stone driveway at the property located at 1 North Turn Lane, Levittown, PA, 19054, as depicted on the plans and in accordance with the testimony presented to the zoning hearing board.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Aaron, can you please pull the board?
Sure. Bill?
Yes.
Nastasha?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Laney?
I'm a yes. You've been approved, so you will be getting a letter from the township.
Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is petition number 2. It's Danja, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, LLC, 110 Central Avenue, Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania, 19030, TMP number 13-005-022, and also semicolon 022-001, semicolon 022-002, close parentheses, I'm sorry I didn't give you the first one, 13-005- parentheses 112, semicolon 116, semicolon 139, semicolon 141, semicolon 142, semicolon 143, semicolon 144, semicolon 145, semicolon 147, semicolon 174, semicolon 175, semicolon 176, close parentheses, 13-005 parentheses 22, semicolon 207, semicolon 203, close parentheses, 13-005-140, semicolon 13-005-177, zoned HC, requesting a use variance which shall permit truck and trailer parking as principal use, Section 209-23, period B. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry, can you repeat the parcel number for me? Sorry, I had to. Would the board like me to begin, or I'm not sure if there's any...
Keith, would you like to?
Yes. Do you anticipate any witnesses that need to be sworn in? We can do that first.
Yes, I do. Let me see, Tony DeSandro, and let's swear in Eric Clace just in case.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Tony, Tony, DeSandro, Disandro.
All right, Eric Clace, Eric with a C, and the last name spelled C-L-A, S as in Sam, E.
Thank you. If we can mark some exhibits for this, ZHB1 with the application for zoning ordinance appeal, along with the accompanying statement in support. 2 will be 8 pages containing 8 color photographs, one of which shows that the property was posted as required. 3 will be notification to the applicant's attorney. This is addressed to Michael McGinnis of Begley Carlin. That letter was sent from Falls Township dated December 4th, 2023. Again, providing notice of tonight's meeting. 4 will be a set of plans that's titled Zoning Permit Plan. 5 will be proof of publication in the Bucks County Courier Times showing this matter was published November 28th and again December 5th, 2023. That is all the board exhibits. I've been provided by Mr. Wiggin a certification of service. I'll mark that as A1. And the letter that's marked as A1, that was sent to all the property owners listed in Exhibit B. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
All right. Madam Chair, I'm satisfied the appropriate notice have been satisfied. This matter can proceed.
Hello.
Good evening, board. Bryce McGuigan from Begley Carlin here on behalf of the applicant, Danja LLC. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. Danja LLC and its owner, Tony DeSandro, who is with me this evening. They are the owners of 15 separate parcels, and I will, for everyone's relief, not repeat those parcel numbers. But there's 15 separate parcels that we're here for today, which are somewhat peculiarly located in between the north side of Business Route 1 and the rear of Jefferson Hospital. Those parcels, they are along 2 separate paper streets, which are known as Rome Street and Central Avenue, unopened paper streets. And together, the parcels themselves, with the paper street area between them, my client owns approximately 8 to 10 acres of property back in that little industrial complex back there. The parcels themselves are part of the HC Highway Commercial Zoning District, and they're home to my client's company, CVA, which is a local general site contractor that's been in existence here in Falls Township since approximately 1970. Like I said, my client, Tony, he bought the property around 10 years ago, but CVA's been there for much longer than that. And we're here today because CVA is leasing a portion of that property to a local trucking operation to lease space for the parking of trucks on the property. Now, CVA has historically used the whole property for its business, essentially for the entirety of its business. However, the back corner of the property, as you can see in the plan, it's historically has been somewhat underused and, to be frank, a bit of a mess. Recently, it's back in 2021, what Tony did was he contracted with this company to lease out a particular portion of the property, and he cleaned up the property, spent over $100,000 cleaning his property, and the trucking business has been there ever since. It's been 2 years, no issues whatsoever. However, came to Tony's attention that to legalize this, it's a lease, it's technically an allocation of space, so he would have to go through the land development process. Even though there's no improvements associated with this, no building, just basically he cleaned up his property and there's trucks being parked in that little corner, technically it's land development. So he hired my firm, hired Mr. Clace's firm, and started that process. During the land development process, that's when we found out that technically speaking, truck parking is not an explicitly permitted use in the HC district. In that little nook, we could open up a restaurant, have a barber shop, which would be a little odd, I would say, but trucking is not allowed. So of our own account, on our own volition, we are here to request this variance. I just want to be clear, there was no notice of violation issued. There were no neighbor complaints that brought us to you today. We realized our mistake that we were leasing it to a company that needed relief, so we're here today of our own volition to ask for that relief. It is one variance. It's a use variance to allow truck parking on site. As I mentioned, this has been going on for 2 years now without really any issue. You know, and to be honest, there's a reason why. Because this particular piece of property, this use makes a lot of sense. You know, it's in a very unique area of the township that is industrial in character. There is a lot of contracting uses there, auto uses there. You are right in the middle of the north side of Business Route 1 and the rear of shopping centers with a whole bunch of woodlands in between. So this particular area, there's no risk of nuisance because you're tucked into that little part of our industrial complex, and it's buffered on two sides by dense woodlands. There's no issue with traffic because we exit right onto Business Route 1, no concern there, and it's a general industrial area. And like I said, the last part is, aesthetically speaking, my client spent over $100,000 to clean up and beautify this property, that a portion of the property that's been somewhat overlooked for a very, very long time. So at the end of the day, this is not hypothetical. This is not speculation. We know that there is no detrimental impact associated with this because we've got 2 years of constant use to show for it. And again, we're here because we're trying to go through the process to be good corporate citizens, just like CVA has been for the entirety of its existence. So like I said, I have Tony DeSandro here. Tony is the owner of the property, the owner of CVA. Like I said, a company that's been here for quite a long time. Tony's the one who decided to go forward with this process, and he's more than able to answer any questions the board may have about the exact use or the history of the property. We also have Eric Clace from Gilmore & Associates, the engineer on the project. Eric will be happy to answer any questions the board may have of a more technical bend. Otherwise, I would like to bring Tony up here to proffer to my statements and then answer any questions that the board may have. Tony?
Sure.
All right, we're going to try to share the microphone here. Tony, did you have a chance to hear my statements to the board just now?
I did. Yes,
All right, did you understand my statements to the board?
I do.
Anything you would care to change or add?
No,
All
everything
right,
fine.
And were they true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, true.
Would you be willing to adopt my statements to the board as your testimony here this evening?
Yes,
Just to briefly add to what I mentioned earlier, you've owned this property now for about 10 years, is that right?
correct.
You're friendly and with your neighbors, and you know your neighbors, correct?
I do, yes.
Have you talked to your neighbors about what you're doing on the property?
Yes, I have.
Any complaints or any issues as far as you know?
No complaints.
And as far as the trucking operation, it's just parking of trucks, correct?
Just parking.
All right, there's no maintenance, there's no work being done on them, nothing like that.
No, no maintenance.
And that's specifically excluded in the lease, correct?
It's excluded in the lease.
And who's responsible for making sure that happens?
I'm responsible.
All right, you personally,
Me personally.
not somebody else in your company, you.
Me personally.
If the board has any questions about your property, about your business, more than happy to answer those. Is that right?
That's true.
All right. So like I said, we also have Mr. Clace here who can answer any sort of engineering questions the board has. But otherwise, the applicant will rest on the exhibits presented and the testimony presented here this evening.
Thank you. Is there any township comment on this?
No comments.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to board comment at this point. Bob,
Matt, any open violations for the junk vehicles or any?
you have to,
I'm sorry. Is there any open violations for the junk vehicles on the property?
No violations.
Okay. Bryce, what's the use for the the junk vehicles in the back corner there.
I'm sorry, what
It's
vehicles?
the last picture of the packet, it shows about like 5, 6 vehicles that are smashed up with tarps on them. Stored in front of the trailers.
I'm not sure I have that photograph in front of me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it was taken by the township. I can show you a copy of mine, so you have it.
You don't mind, can I borrow?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Bob, what picture was that? Number
It's
5?
the last picture of the packet, Bryce.
It looks like it's a trailer that they have parked there that they just covered. There must be something they're covering. I really don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you this. In talking with Tony. Oh, thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. You guys are probably going to need that in a few minutes. Tony, why don't you tell Bob what you were telling
Can
me?
he be sworn in? Was he sworn in?
He has already been sworn in.
Yeah. So, do you know what this picture is? What this picture depicts?
I don't know what's under the tarp. It looks like a trailer that it must be whoever operates the trailer, the truck and trailer, parks their vehicle with something on the back of the trailer and they have it covered. I don't know exactly what's under there.
Okay.
But they do park their vehicles when they go long distance. They'll park their vehicle there, they leave for a couple weeks, and then they come back. So it must be the vehicle they drove there.
Okay. Would you be willing to condition that there is no storage of wrecked or unlicensed motor vehicles on the property?
Yeah, definitely.
Of course. Yeah. Again, all we want to do is park trucks, and obviously, when the trucks leave, a commercial vehicle may be not commercial. A personal vehicle may be parked there. We do not want junk vehicles. We don't want to store any wrecked vehicles or anything like that. And that's perfectly acceptable to the applicant.
Okay. That's all I have, man.
Ms. Sasha? Bill?
Yes, I have a couple. Your storage of trucks there, will there be any waste trucks or medical waste or hazardous waste stored there overnight?
Absolutely not.
All right, thank you.
Aaron?
Nothing from me, thanks.
And you asked my question, Bob, so I have no other further questions at this time. Is there any public comment? I don't see anybody at this time. Aaron or somebody on the board, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the application of Danja LLC requesting a use variance from section 20923B of the Falls Township zoning ordinance be granted to allow a truck and trailer parking as a principal use at the property located at 110 Central Avenue, Fairless Hills, PA, 19030, as depicted on the plans and in accordance with testimony presented to the zoning hearing board. Condition that there will be no storage of disabled or inoperable vehicles on the property.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Aaron, can you please pull the board?
Sure, we'll start with Bill,
Yes,
Nastasha? Bob?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Leanie?
I'm a yes also. Your petition has been granted. You'll be receiving something from the township.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are now down to petition number 3, which is Allstate Auto Sales LLC, 981 Lincoln Highway, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, 19067. TMP number 13-028-034, zoned HC, requesting a use variance to allow using back of the property to extend parking in addition to the currently existing used car dealership, inventory of 90 vehicles. Section 209-23.b and 209-23.e.
Good evening. Eric Clace from Gilmore and Associates, representing Allstate Auto Sales LLC. This matter's been continued 3 previous times, and in lieu of asking for another continuance, we respectfully asked to withdraw the application. We've recently been taken on as the professional by the owner. We're not up to speed on all the problems yet, so we need to dive in, prepare a plan, become educated on the relief that's required. And if we need to make an application, we will make an application in the near future. But tonight, we are not up to speed on the project and ask the withdrawal of the application.
All right, thank you.
You can just say we'll mark it as withdrawal. You can just say we'll mark it as withdrawal.
We will mark that as withdrawal then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now down to number 4, which is Night and Day Properties, LLC, 99 Bristol Oxford Valley Road, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, 19047, and 119 Trenton Road, Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania, 19030. TMP number 13-001-002, and number 13-001-008, zoned HR, requesting the following dimensional variances for the construction of a 23-unit, am I still saying 23?
He'll have to amend it.
23-unit townhome community, section 209-16 parentheses F, and table 1A, minimum lot requirements for HR district, relating to the minimum lot requirements for townhouse and other single-family attached dwelling as follows. To permit a minimum lot area of 1,494 square feet, whereas 1,800 square feet is otherwise required. B, to permit a minimum lot depth of 83 feet, whereas 90 feet is otherwise required. C, to permit a side yard setback of 10 feet, whereas a minimum side yard setback of 20 feet is otherwise required for townhomes and end units. D, to permit a rear yard setback of 15 feet, whereas a minimum rear yard of 30 feet is otherwise required. E, to permit a maximum building coverage of 48.2%, whereas a maximum building coverage of 30% is otherwise permitted. F, to permit maximum impervious surface ratio of 81.4%, whereas maximum impervious surface of 60% is otherwise permitted, allowed. Section 209-16 parentheses F, and Table 2, lot requirements for HR and AQ districts for the overall subject properties as follows. A, to permit a minimum tract area of 2.18 acres, whereas 6 acres is otherwise required. B, to permit a minimum lot depth of approximately 285 feet, where 600 feet is otherwise required. C, to permit a perimeter yard of 15 feet, whereas 35 feet is otherwise required. D, to permit a minimum distance between buildings of 20 feet, whereas a minimum of 50 feet between buildings is otherwise required. E, to not provide outdoor recreation area, whereas 250 square feet of outdoor recreation area per dwelling unit is otherwise required. And F, to not permit indoor recreation area, whereas 10 square feet of indoor recreation area per dwelling unit is otherwise required. Section 209-16.1E, parentheses, 1 parentheses, B parentheses, and 209-38.1.E, parentheses, 3, to provide less than the required 50-foot buffer yard for the overall tract. Section 209-42.B, parentheses, 1, to not provide the required planting strip, whereas a clustered planting of dense plant material not less than 4 feet in height and 10 feet in width is otherwise required to be between off-street parking areas and any lot lines. Keith?
Mr. McHugh, good evening. Do you have any witnesses that need to be sworn?
I think at this time, maybe just Mr. Clace, who's our engineer.
He's already been sworn.
He's already been sworn, you said?
Yes, he's already been
Okay.
sworn.
We have a revised plan. The relief has not changed as it relates to the plan, but if it's okay, I'd like to bring those plans up now and hand those
Sure.
out to the board, and then I can provide a better overview at that time.
Absolutely. And while you're doing that, we'll mark exhibits for this application. We'll mark ZHB1, application for zoning ordinance appeal, along with the accompanying statement. I'm sorry, ZHB 1 will just be the application for zoning ordinance appeal. 2 will be the landowner authorization form signed by Bob Remigli. That letter is dated September 19, 2023. 3 will be the amended addendum to zoning hearing board application. 4 will be
I'm sorry, Mr. Billingmeyer, I was walking around as you were speaking. Assume you got Exhibit A1?
I'm still...
You're still going, okay.
I'm
I
still
wasn't
counting,
sure.
sorry. 4 will be 9 pages containing 9 color photographs, one of which shows that the property was posted on both sides, on both the Bristol-Oxford Valley Road side and also the Trenton Road side. Following is a set of plans stamped September 19, 2023. I understand that might have changed, but Mr. McHugh can explain that. Next will be the applicant notification letter sent to Mr. McHugh from Falls Township dated December 4, 2023. Following will be six colored photographs. Again, one of the photos shows that the property was posted for this December 12th meeting on the Bristol-Oxford Valley side and also the Trenton Road side, since the matter was continued. Following that will be proof of publication in the Bucks County Courier-Times showing this matter was published originally September 26, 2023, and then again October 3rd, 2023. And that publication was for the amended application submitted by the applicant. I've been provided by Mr. McHugh a certificate of service. I'll mark that as A1. I have one moment, Madam Chair. And Mr. McHugh, all the addresses listed on the letter provided dated December 5th, that was sent to the adjoining or abutting property owners?
That's correct, Mr. Billingmeyer.
All right, and you now handed up plans that I will mark. The top sheet I'll mark as A2, and the second sheet I'll mark as A3. That is all the exhibits, I believe. The appropriate notice have been satisfied, and this matter can proceed.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, thank you very much. Matt McHugh, attorney for the applicant, Night and Day Properties. This is an application now for a 20-unit townhome community on two properties, 99 Bristol-Oxford Valley Road and a portion of 119 Trenton Road. This is an application that was originally submitted back in April of this year and has been taking up a spot on your agenda pretty much every month since then. When it was originally submitted, we proposed 34 townhomes as part of this project. And over the course of the last 8 months, we've been working with both the township and the adjacent property owners, who are the owners of Marie's Cozy Corner, to revise the plans to address their concerns. And we've gotten now to the revised plan A2, which is perhaps notably titled Sketch Plan 9. As we've gone through a number of layout changes to address the various concerns raised by those neighbors. Those concerns included density. Like I said, the plan was originally 34 units. We're down to 20 units. Buffering was another major concern of the adjacent property owner, and as a result, we added a 6-foot privacy fence, a berm, and landscape buffer that has been added along the shared property line with Marie's Cozy Corner. The units, the townhome units, were also shifted further north up Bristol-Oxford Valley Road, and they are now somewhere between 110 to 130 feet from that property line. If you look at the original plan that was submitted, they were pretty close to that edge of the property line. Stormwater management was another concern. We've worked with both the township engineer and with the adjacent property owners. We're now showing a 7,000 square foot approximate stormwater management basin above ground that is located to address concerns about runoff on the adjoining properties, but also to serve as an additional buffer of space between that shared property line and the closest townhome units. Parking was a concern. We widened the unit driveways so that now each townhome unit provides for a 2-car driveway. Plus, we have complied with the off-street parking requirements so that no parking variance is required. There were concerns about circulation and access. The layout was completely reworked, and we worked with the fire marshal to make sure that there was a secondary emergency access off Bristol-Oxford Valley Road. So that's a high-level overview, and Mr. Clace will run you through the plan in a little bit more detail. But there's been a lot of work going on here over the past 8 months outside of the view of the zoning hearing board, and we think that we're finally in a position now to present this plan to you for your consideration. You read a laundry list of variances, and I know it sounds all like it's very much and very daunting. However, they can really be kindly broken down neatly into a couple of categories. We have what I'll call the Table 1A variances, which are related to the individual townhome units. And not every lot needs every variance, and not every variance is of the greatest nature for every individual lot. And we have a nice little chart that we'll submit in a little bit that breaks down what unit needs what variance and to what extent. And what you'll see is that what the application asks for in the relief is the most significant relief for each individual category. But it may not be all 20 units needed, and it may not be to the same level for each unit that you see listed in the application. Then we have what I'll call the Table 2 variances, and we're not even sure whether they really apply to a townhome project in the HR district. They relate to the overall tract, and they were provided in a review comment letter, so we've added them out of an abundance of caution. Most of them are existing nonconformities that can't be changed relating to the property. Just as in it, for instance, there's a minimum lot area of 6 acres. We're a 2.18 acre lot. Obviously, we can't find another 4 acres to add to this parcel. Not sure if it applies or not, but out of an abundance of caution, we're asking for those variances. And then finally, the last two relate to buffer yards and the screening from the parking lot. We're just not meeting the full intent and requirement of those ordinances. We are providing some buffer, we are providing some screening, but a variance is still necessary. Those are things that we'll continue to work on through land development. And then finally, maybe not as relevant to what the board is considering tonight, but we've had a lot of discussions with the township, and a lot of that has gone through what I'll call land development related items. And as a result, we've eliminated a number of SALDO waivers from this project. So overall, over the course of 8 months, we've really eliminated or reduced a lot of relief here. So we're excited to present this project to you at this time. I think it's in good shape for your consideration. At this time, I'll call up Mr. Clace and have him, he's already been sworn, but Eric, do you want to just?
Yeah, just a point of order. Can you do party size?
Here, Tom.
We would like to wait till we get to public comment to do that for you.
Wait till the end?
Yes, please.
I mean, I'll note just for the record that Mr. Panzer, I think, had requested party status when I first filed the application. We have no objection. He represents the adjacent property owner. We're happy with him if he wants to cross-examine any of our witness or otherwise participate in the proceedings.
You can do it now, or you can wait. It's your choice.
I guess just do it now.
Okay. Can we handle it? Okay. Mr. Panzer, the chair has decided that we can handle that now. So if you're seeking party status, if you could just place on the record how your client is aggrieved by this, the board then will decide whether or not to grant party status.
Thank you. Thomas Panzer, the law firm of High Swartz, representing Nancy Lawson, 111 Trenton Road, Fairless Hills, an adjacent property owner, which supports a 43-year business known as Marie's Cozy Corner. It is the adjacent property owner. We have been in discussions with the applicant and appreciate their willingness to adjust plans consistent with Marie's Cozy Corner's requests. We'd like party status as an affected property owner. We don't intend to actively participate, but rather monitor and perhaps request conditions at the conclusion of the hearing, but for the record, we would request party status.
And we have no objection to their request for party status.
Thank you. We're going to go off the record for 1 moment, please.
Very clever.
Back on the record, the board convened quickly, decided to grant your client party status for this application, Mr. Panzer. Also, we can point out that Mr. Matee, who is a board member, he's going to recuse himself for tonight, and Mr. Kilmer will be sitting in as the alternate member in this application. So we just want to state that for the record. I also know that the township solicitor's here if you want to state your name for the record, and you'll be granted party status automatically. Thank you.
No objection.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may continue.
Okay, so at this point then, I think I'll bring up Mr. Clace here, and he can help run us through the property and the plan that we're proposing this evening.
Good evening again. As Matt stated, the property is located in the high residential zoning district, HR. The property in question is approximately 2 acres in the proposed condition. The access drive on the plan up on the screen is to the northern side of the property. The cartway will be 26 feet wide. There will be no parking allowed within the cartway. Each individual home will allow 2 parking spaces in their driveway. There are 20 overflow parking spaces. So if you were to enter the site from Bristol Oxford Valley Road to the left, you have a unit of 6 townhomes. Just as you're passing along there, there are 10 parking spaces. That was a point of contention with the township that was very important to him, to have parking, overflow parking, as close to the entrance as possible. We've run truck turning vehicles through here, emergency vehicles, 18-wheelers. They all are able to go through the site with no problem whatsoever. Another point that was highly talked through was the above-ground detention basin. The township engineer didn't want to see us go underground. We have a very large, as you can see on the plan, detention basin proposed. It'll be a BMP rain garden. We're not at that stage yet, but it will have all the bells and whistles of a typical environmentally sensitive basin. Along the southern property line, which is Marie's Cozy Corner, you will see again the basin, a berm, and a lot of landscaping and trees. We will be proposing a fence as well that was agreed upon between the parties. As Matt originally stated, we did submit a plan months ago with 34 units. We are down to 20 total units. That's pretty much the gist of my presentation, unless you have any questions for me.
I guess just, Eric, just to be, maybe it might be helpful to orient everybody. So when we're talking about the plan, Bristol Oxford Valley Road is to the bottom.
Right, to
The
the
Marie's
west.
Cozy Corner property line is to the right of the plan,
To the south, to the right.
to the right, and to the left is the other apartment building, I believe.
That is correct. To the
Okay.
north, to the west plan view is the other apartment building.
Correct. And then as far as sidewalk connection, are we providing any here?
We're providing sidewalks through the entire development along the homes.
Okay. And how about emergency access for emergency vehicles?
As you enter the site, which is on the northern side of the property again, you go up through the townhomes, you make a right, which is to the south, you would make another right, which is to the west. You come to a dead end of the parking, but that's not where the emergency stops. The emergency vehicles will be able to continue over what we're calling the grass pavers and continue out to Bristol Oxford Valley Road. We will have access from Bristol Oxford Valley if the emergency vehicle wants to enter in that location as well.
Okay, and just from a circulation perspective, I think an original plan, or most of the plans we originally submitted had a cul-de-sac look,
That's correct.
and we've eliminated that from this plan, correct?
That is correct.
And that was partially at the request of the township from a circulation and allowing for or prohibiting parking on the side of the road and letting the fire trucks and other trucks get through?
That is correct.
You mentioned the berm and the fence and the landscape buffer. Obviously, details like that will be ironed out at land development as to what type of plantings there.
That is correct.
But the intent is it to be for a visual screen
Yes.
from the Marie's Cozy Corner property.
It will assist with visual and sound.
Okay. And then we also, something that we talked about was just the general distance from the first townhome units to the shared property line.
Yeah, that's correct. The unit closest to Bristol-Oxford Valley Road is approximately 110 feet from the property line. And then as you're moving plan east, which is up on the plan, that unit is about 130 to 135 feet from the property line.
And that's significantly further away from that property line than the original units were first proposed.
The original units were proposed at 10 to 15 feet off the property line.
Okay. And the stormwater management basin, was that located in a specific area for a reason?
That is the area where the topo would be directing the water, so we will deal with that during land development, but it was also placed there as an additional buffer from Marie's Cozy Corner.
And was one of the requests to sort of oversize that basin a little bit?
That is correct.
Okay.
We know that there are drainage problems in the area, and it will be oversized.
And the details will be worked out, obviously, during land development in compliance with the stormwater management ordinances?
That's correct.
Okay. If it's helpful, I don't know if the board wants to ask any questions about the plans, or we can get into the specific details of the variances that are being requested. Happy to do either. I just don't want to cut anybody short of questions before we get into sort of the minutia detail.
That's up to you how you want to handle it. You can have a question now or go to the entire application and ask questions. I guess that's some of your question.
We'll let you continue at this time.
So, if I may, I have an exhibit, which I'll mark as A4, which provides an overview of the individual lot variances, which are the quote-unquote Table 1A variances I referenced, which I think will help provide the board with a little bit of a better understanding as exactly what is being requested. So what is I've marked as Exhibit A4, what this shows is what are the Table 1A variances that I've mentioned that each of the individual townhome lots require. We need variances related to lot area, lot depth, rear yard setback, side yard setbacks for the end unit, building coverage, and impervious surface. So what this chart shows is it identifies across the top line from left to right each of those areas, and then from top to bottom goes from what the required amount is under the ordinance, and then lists from lot 1 through lot 20. Corresponding on the plan, as you will see, each unit has a number so you can follow with which one it is. As I mentioned, not every lot needs the same variance, and not every variance is of the same depth or requirement for each lot. So if you look at lot area, what I've done here is the lots that require variances have a star or asterisk next to them. Those are the ones that would be less than the 1,800 square feet. And the one that is bolded and italicized is the minimum number of all those numbers, which under the lot area would be lot 15 of 1,494 square feet. The bottom line of the chart then identifies the total number of lots that need that particular variance. So for lot area, we have 12 of those lots need a lot area variance, with the lowest lot area being 1,494 square feet. For lot depth, which is the next one over, All 20 units need that lot depth variance, with the least being 83 feet, which is numbers 14, 15, 16, and 17. Rear yard setback, again, all 20 units require that variance, and there are 4 which have 15 feet, which is 14, 15, 19, and 20. The side yard setback for end units, 8 of those units need variances of the 20. They all have 10 feet. Lots 1, lot 6 and 7, lot 13 and 14, 16 and 17, and 20. And I will note lots 1 and 20 are angled, so although they have a minimum of 10, they open up to around 21 or 22 feet at some point. Similar with building coverage, 15 of the 20 lots need a variance, with the greatest building coverage being 48.2%, which is for lots 15 and 18. And then finally, from an impervious surface perspective for the individual units, 13 units require variances, with the largest being 84.5%, and that was unit 15. In addition to the Table 1A variances, we need a couple of variances from Table 2, which are for the overall tract. Those relate to the overall tract size. 6 acres is required, where we have 2.1 acres. A minimum lot depth of 600 feet is required, where we provide 285 feet. A perimeter yard of 35 feet is required, where we're providing 15. A minimum distance between buildings of 50 feet is required. We only have one separation between 16 and 17 of 20 feet. And recreation space, indoor and outdoor recreation space is required. We aren't providing any. In addition, there's a requirement on 20938 EAE3 for a complete 50-foot buffer yard around the perimeter of the property. We are providing that buffer that was described along the shared property line with Marie's Cozy Corner, but not elsewhere along the property boundaries. And finally, there are 20942B1. There's parking lot screening of 4 feet in height and 10 feet in width for all parking lots. We're screening the 10 spaces that face Marie's Cozy Corner, maybe not to the extent of the ordinance. And there's also some other plannings for the other 5 or other 10 off-street parking spaces. And we'll continue to develop a further screen during land development, but a technical variance is required for those items. I'll just ask Mr. Clace if he agrees with my summary of the variances to put that on the record.
I do.
That's all we would have at this point. We're happy to answer any questions the board may have about the plan.
Thank you. Nastasha? Bill? I have a question. Oh,
Yes, I have a few questions.
hold on one second, Bill. Nastasha has one now.
I'm sorry.
How many feet are you, a buffer are you putting between the property and the?
So yeah, the distance between the closest townhome unit is 110 feet to the property line. And in between that, you'll have parking, emergency access, stormwater management basin, then a landscape buffer with a privacy fence, and it'll be elevated on a berm.
Yeah, to expand on that a little further, one of the reasons for some of the variances, especially lot depth on those units, was to expand that distance. So we could have made those lots deeper, but we chose to make them shorter, ask for the relief so there was more distance between the property line and the units.
Bill?
All right, first is, what is the, let me think of this. What is the, outstanding features that you need to go to zoning? Usually you have to have a reason, a hardship. What is the hardship of this?
Sure. So we have an undersized lot here, which is 2.18 acres. It's existing woodlands. It has our density from what is the permitted density The HR district allows for 20 dwelling units per acre for a townhome development. We're at about half of that, which we've used to, and as Mr. Clace indicated, based on the feedback we received from our adjacent property owners, we've had to really shift all of our development north and truncate it, which has been a reason for some of the variances.
All right, but I don't hear the hardship. That's number one. All right, I'll go on to the next question. You want 81.4% impervious surface?
No, that's for one of the townhome lots. So the overall tract, when you look at the tract as a whole, the overall 2.1 acre property, the impervious surface is 52.5% for the whole overall property when you look at it as a whole. The 81.4, and that was a typo, it's actually 84.5, relates to lot 15. So if you look at lot 15, that is of the two lots, the two sets of buildings, it's the second one from the top in the middle, that's lot 15. So that is the smallest individual lot we have. It's a less than 1,500 square foot lot with the same size townhome. That's where the 84.5 comes from.
And you're not to provide outdoor recreation. Well, before I ask that question, is this age restricted?
No.
All right, then I'll go on to my next one. You're not providing any outdoor recreation or indoor recreation. Where do you plan on any children having recreation besides out in the roadway or the parking lot?
So first, that recreation requirement is a Table 2 requirement, and as we indicated in the beginning, I'm not really sure that applies to townhome communities. When we read the ordinance, I think it's mostly meant for apartment complexes. That being said, we're not providing designated recreation area. We've decided to maximize the space for parking, landscaping, and trees, but there will be other green area that's just not designated recreation area here.
But you're requesting an exemption from it.
We are out of an abundance of caution to the fact that it applies to this project. I think if you read that Table 2 closely, it doesn't allow for almost any townhome development of this district.
My point is you're asking for it and you're not providing outdoor or indoor recreation for any kids there. I mean, what's the expectation of kids playing? I mean, there's nothing there for them to walk to.
Well, there's connectivity of sidewalks all along throughout the development, and there will be other green space, just not specified recreation area. I don't know where we would put indoor recreation other than building a clubhouse or something to that effect.
I don't know. This is not my request. This is yours. That's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, we're not providing that.
And I just have a hard time with your hardship. You're trying to fit 20 townhouses into this lot. I mean, I still don't see a hardship except
townhouse
is most you can get in there.
No, we've fit a lot more on there, but we've worked with the township and the adjacent property owners to reduce the scope of the development. Townhomes are permitted use here. Now, if you take Table 2 to apply to this, all of the requirements here require that they took into effect a larger 6-acre lot. So our hardship is we have a 2.1 acre lot that we can't expand the size on, and we have a permitted use. As a result, we need dimensional variances to reach the scope of the development that would be allowed under the ordinance. And the scope of the development that's allowed under the ordinance is actually twice the size of this. So we've reduced it as much as we can to fit the appropriate number of units on a permitted use on this lot. And these are the dimensional variances that come from it.
So this 2-something acre lot, the only thing that it's good for is to put 20 townhouses on.
Not what I said. I said that townhomes are a permitted use in this lot, in this district. I didn't say that it's the only thing you can use it for. I'm not asking for a use variance. If I was asking for a use variance, I'd have a much harder issue with that question, but this is a permitted use here.
All right, I just don't get it. All right, I'm done.
Chris? Aaron?
Great, thank you. So just to follow up on a couple of things you said, so the appropriate number of units is a word you just said. And as you said, you started at 34, came down to 30, now you're down to 20. Just to be a little bit extreme, you could put 5 units here and not need any variances at all. Everything would fit in easy peasy.
And that's not true. So,
So okay, sorry, let me ask the actual question. Why does 20 and not 18 or 15, why is that the appropriate number? You also said something about 20 units per acre earlier?
so if you look at the zoning ordinance
Yeah.
and you look at the HR district, what they allow for is what the permitted density is 20 dwelling units per acre. So if you take table 2 also, you should also have 6 acres. So with a 2-acre site, you can do 20 units per acre times 2 acres is 40 units.
Right.
That was sort of where our initial concept came from. Now, we have other competing interests here. Obviously, the developer has to make a certain number of units. There's site work associated with here. There's the economic realities of it. Then we have township concerns. We have adjoining property neighbor concerns. If we wanted, the original plan that had 34, 35 units, that used the entirety of the site. In order to address the comments of of the township and the neighbors, we were kind of shifted further north. And that truncates an undersized lot even further, and which is going to create some more variances then. And it comes down to developing a more harmonious development that works with the needs and concerns of surrounding property owners rather than maybe making the most efficient use of the land.
Sure. So I can appreciate that by coming down from a higher number to a lower number, you've been able to accommodate some aspects, but it's still a question of density. And the chart you gave us is really useful because you very appropriately said you're not asking for variance on every single townhome. It's only some of them.
Yep.
But so for lot area, it's 12 out of 20. For lot depth, it's all of them, 20 out of 20. For rear yard setback, it's 20 out of 20. For side yard setback, it's not all of them, but it's actually only applicable to 8 of them, so it is 8 out of 8. Building coverage, 15 out of 20. Impervious surface, 13 out of 20. So, so for most of those categories, it's all of them. For a subset of them, it is more than half, half to 75%. So the density is, at least to me, still an issue in that even, by and I appreciate you've made some concessions to put in the berm and the stormwater basin. That took up a lot of space. That took up a lot of real estate. But the consequence is now in this, and again, I appreciate 2 acres, less than 6 acres. If you had 6 acres, you could do a lot more, but you would also be looking to put a lot more in there. You'd be looking to put 6 times 20 potentially homes in there. And I think we'd probably be having a similar conversation about how can we squeeze all that in there. So I think the concern that we have, or at least that I have, is still that this seems overly dense.
So what I'll say is...
And I'm thinking about the homeowners that are going to come into these townhomes and have no backyard, no playground, no, living right on top of
So
each
I think
other.
there's 2 elements to that. One is the individual townhome units. You have to look at it both from a global perspective as the overall tract, and then what the variance is for the Table 1A, which relate to the individual units. That may be what that property owner owns, but there's still elements of this that are going to be common elements that are available to the entire development. So while they may only have a backyard of 10 feet, there's other green space or access requirements that they're going to have to utilize as part of the plan. We also, as we went down from 34, 35 units down to 20, what we noticed was a lot of the variances, especially these Table 1A variances, they didn't change. Because when we spoke with the township and spoke with the neighbors, some of it was try to eliminate or reduce the total number of variances. And even with the reduction in total density, it didn't necessarily eliminate Table 1A variances. It maybe made them less of the moment in some instances. But for instance, like the lot depth, could we put a 90-foot lot depth there? Yeah, but then it's going to shrink the size of the stormwater management basin, or shrink the size of the buffer, or shrink the size of the cartway for vehicle circulation. And then we were getting into concerns from the fire marshal about whether a fire truck could get through, whether there was going to be, adequate stormwater management here, whether there was going to be enough of a visual screen. So there's a lot of competing interests here, and we really tried our best to come up with a plan that addressed all of those and still put enough of a development there for it to make sense to build.
Okay, thank you.
My question to you is 99 Bristol Oxford Valley Road, that's a single home, correct?
I believe so, yes.
With a lot of wooded areas and stuff like
Correct.
that, right?
Yes.
And then 119 Trenton Road used to be a real estate agency.
That's the Century 21 real estate building, yeah.
Okay. So you purchased 99, well, your client purchased 99 Bristol Oxford Valley Road and 119 Trenton Road, and are combining the two sites to create this townhome community that you have before us. My question that Bill started was about the hardship. The hardship is the property, not the person. If you purchased 99 Bristol Oxford Valley Road singly, you could put another house there. You could put maybe two townhomes. If you purchased 119 Trenton Road, you could put a business there, you could do whatever you wanted, and that, as long as it fit within the conformities. But you have bought two properties to join them together. It's not the hardship of the property that's the issue, it's the hardship of the developer, because the developer purchased two properties and is trying to create this that wasn't originally designed. So my question is, when you purchased these two properties, you already knew that you were going to maybe do this type of thing, correct?
I can't speak, but yeah, I would assume that, first off, they're the equitable owner, meaning
sorry?
they're the equitable owner. They haven't actually purchased them. They have
Oh,
them under
okay.
contract to purchase.
Only the
So,
residential lot.
okay,
That's the 99 Bristol Oxford Valley lot.
okay.
119 Trenton, we're just taking a portion of that. That's still going to remain. It's only a portion of that lot that's being used.
But you're taking that
So-
part of the lot and you're combining it.
And
into
we're
another
consolidating,
lot.
correct.
So, if you purchased 99 Bristol Oxford Valley Road, you would put a house there, because that's what's there now. And you
So
have the woods, you see what I'm trying to say
I
to
understand your
you?
question, and I think that line of inquiry would be relevant to a use variance. The use that we're seeking here is a use that is permitted in this zoning district. If I came in and townhomes weren't permitted in the district and I was asking you for a use variance and you said you could put a single family home there, you could put a business there, the law would 100% agree with you. But the zoning ordinance says this use is permitted. There's certain dimensional requirements that we have to meet. And the hardship that is associated with the land is that all of those requirements are based on a 6 acre lot. So they're intended for larger lots. The way the zoning ordinance is written, why we need a variance and why we're entitled to those variances, because we only have 2 acres. That's associated with the property. We've made it a little bit better, but we don't have the ability to make a 6 acre lot here. There's existing residences or existing premises. So we're constrained dimensionally by that size of that lot. And as a result, we think we've done a pretty good job of limiting the amount of variances that are necessary, at least the scope of them. And that's partially from taking it from 34 units to 20 has brought those down a little bit. Things like parking and impervious surface. There's a fair amount of lots here that are compliant in certain elements of that. So I think that, to answer your question, I think that's where that comes from. If this was a use variance, I think that would be the appropriate inquiry. But this is a by right permitted use, and we're talking about dimensional variances here.
How many bedrooms are these townhomes going to have? Are they 2, 3?
They're 3 bedroom is
They're
what
all 3 bedrooms?
that's what the ordinance calls for. At least they have to be at least 3 bedrooms.
Okay. And you have only one way in and one way out, correct?
We have an emergency access as well.
But the
Well, yeah, there's
residents
one-
living
one-
there can
one
only
main
go in
entrance,
one
correct.
way in and one way out,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Did you do a traffic study to see about the inflow onto Bristol-Oxford Valley Road?
We
you
have not. That would, I assume, be part of a land
Okay.
development process.
Because that's kind of a busy road.
Understood, and we would have to do a traffic study as part of our land development submission, and if it requires improvements, that the township's going to hold us to that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that also. I mean, you keep telling me that it's not a conditional kind of, it's variances because of lot size and stuff like that, but you're still asking for a lot of variances, even though they don't apply to all 20 of them. So I hate to say this, but it's kind of like we're rewriting the whole thing just for this townhome to exist.
It's not, and so it's something that, when we were looking at this, there was another townhome plan that had been approved previously that had similar variances. And that was sort of the framework for this particular project in looking at the types of variances that had been previously granted. And by no means is that binding upon this board, but we looked at it as a good starting point to say, we think townhomes are needed in Falls Township. We think these are going to be really a great asset to the community. If we're going to model this development, let's look at what else has been previously approved and start there. And then we've had input from the township and input from Marie's Cozy Corner as to what they wanted with this particular project. And I'll say the level of inquiry this has gone through, it's gone through a lot for a zoning plan. We've met with the township engineer has reviewed it. The township fire marshal has reviewed it. And they've all, and I don't want to speak for them, but they're no longer opposing the plan at least. So I think they've gotten comfortable with what we're showing here this evening. And there's variances that are associated with it. I'm not going to say that they're not, but this is a plan that I think everybody's gotten their arms around. And sometimes the relief is kind of mechanics of addressing and being a good neighbor and putting a good development that works for everybody.
So just a point of order, if we go to public comment, the board can still ask questions afterwards, yes?
That is correct.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I would like to bring up the people with party status to ask their questions, if need be. Hold on one second, Natasha has a question.
I just want to be clear on what you said. So the variances that you're asking for, they're required based on a larger lot. Is that what you?
So the requirements, based on the way we've set up the variances we're requesting, and I can't tell you when they were drafted how it was meant, but if Table 2 applies, Table 2 says you have to have 6 acres. And then when they're putting the Table 1A requirements out, that assumes that you're developing on a 6-acre lot. So you would have a lot more room to meet 1,800 square foot lot area, 90-foot lot depth, those things.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to point out is, as Matt keeps calling out, when you're looking at Table 1A, which is for the HR district, you go down to the notes at the bottom. The first note states, garden apartment or high-rise apartment buildings must comply with Table 2. There's nowhere on this chart that says townhome developments have to comply with Table 2. We're just trying to do the right thing and cover all of our bases. If you take away Table 2, we eliminate like 7 variances. We're just trying to do what the professionals asked us. We don't completely agree with all the relief that we're asking for, but we're trying to cover our bases. If we take Table 2 and put it aside, we're looking at a development that is almost identical to one that was approved a few years ago, and that one actually had more variances. So we got to keep that into consideration, that we don't necessarily, as professionals, agree to the relief we're asking for, but we're being told to ask it. So yeah, a Table 2, in my opinion, does not apply to this development.
I'm
If I-
trying to.
If I can, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand like the math. So I understand what you were looking at is for, whenever it was written, it was for a larger area. So being that you have a smaller area, you wouldn't even, if I'm correct, you wouldn't need this much of a variance if it was I don't know, like proportional.
So yeah, if we had 6 acres, for instance, right, we'd be able to provide everything that Marie's Cozy Corner was asking for and probably eliminate some of the variances. So one of the, I think, kind of hornbook law arguments on hardship is when you have a lot that doesn't meet it's non-conforming. It's an undersized lot. That's what we have here. It's undersized compared to what the ordinance is drafted for.
And to reiterate, someone that, I forget who mentioned it, if we had 6 acres, I would be standing in front of you with 120 lots that needed 15 variances.
Thank you, that's what I was trying to
That's
understand.
correct.
Okay.
There is no way we could ever, any property in Falls Township could ever meet the density that's permitted. That is a hardship. So we're starting off with a hardship. We've tried to make the lots smaller. We have moved them away from Marie's Cozy Corner. I know that's nobody's problem on the zoning hearing board, but we're trying to be good neighbors. We're trying to come up with a good plan. And we did use a plan that was approved a few years ago in front of this zoning hearing board with all the same variances. They had a total of 12 units. Yes, we're asking for 20. We have more property. So that's how we came up to where we are today. That's the hardship, is there is no townhome project in Falls that could be approved without relief. That's what it comes down to.
Thank you.
So I was asking this question too. So let me just restate what you said, just to make sure that I
Sure.
understand it. If you were at 6 acres or 4 acres, at 2 acres or 1 acre, you would, the use, the allowable use is townhomes, yes, understood, and townhomes at 20 units per acre,
Correct.
allowed use, yes.
Correct.
And the point is, whether you're at 6 acres or 4 acres or 2 acres or a half an acre, the dimensional variances at that density would never
They never
would
add
never
up.
work out.
They
So it's
never add
not
up.
that if you had 6 acres, you could make the dimensional units work out. You wouldn't work them out at 6
Correct.
acres either, because you wouldn't have a luxury of space, because you would still have that same allowed use density.
Right. And another thing to
Understood.
note is
Okay.
the minimum width and the minimum depth, when you multiply them, don't get the minimum lot area.
I got
There's
it.
a lot of mathematical errors in
I got
this.
it. And I definitely agree that the law says, like, you know, the requirements for demonstrating a use variance are much higher than a dimensional variance. But yet they're still there, right? There's still the requirement that there's a hardship, there's still, right? And, you know, while the use allows you to get to 20, you know, you're not at 20 per acre, you're at
We're at
less.
10
but-
per acre, pretty
right,
much.
Right, exactly. So, but, you know, but it's still the, you know, table 1 and table 1 versus table 2, I also appreciate that argument, but everything on this is table 1.
Oh, yeah, but that's the way he laid out that document.
Understood,
Correct.
understood.
Yeah.
But,
Mhm.
yep,
Right.
thanks.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to reiterate one more time, we keep hearing that, like, what's your hardship? The hardship is the ordinance doesn't allow this development. And although we're entitled to it, that's the root of the hardship.
I have one more a couple of questions. I don't think you can blame zoning for the hardship, but that's besides the point. If you built less townhouses in there, could you meet the zoning?
No.
No matter how less you, because you said it's, if I'm not mistaken, you testified that there's an economic reality to this, and that means you want to be able to make as much money as you can for that lot size.
So
okay, let
we've
me-
also
okay.
started at 35 units, and we've gone down to 20, and the variances are still the variances. We've eliminated 15 units, and we have the same variances. So we could get down to 5, and we'd still have the same variances.
Yeah, our office has prepared probably 30 sketches, and you've only seen, I think, 9 of them.
9, we're at 9 right now.
One of
yeah.
the sketches had 10 units lined up along Bristol-Oxford Valley where the driveways went out to Bristol-Oxford Valley. We still needed 7 variances. Nobody wants homes with driveways going to Bristol-Oxford Valley. So,
I don't blame them.
yeah, so we came up with this development, working with the developer, working with the township. Obviously, it sounds like you want less units, but at a certain point, it has to be economically feasible. And I think we're at the point where 20 is where this developer, it can't be any less.
You can't be granted a exemption because it's not economic feasible. That's not.
Understood. The argument there is the
Hardship.
hardship is it's a permitted use, and the density allows 38. We're asking for 20.
And what we're also pointing out, though, is this has been a plan that's been worked on by other interested parties, and there's certain elements that aren't necessarily required by zoning or land development that are being put in here at an increased cost to the developer, that sure, we could find ways to reconfigure this, but then we'd have neighbors that weren't happy with us or the township that wasn't happy with us. So there's a little bit of competing interests here, and we're working to marry those together.
And the other big issue I definitely have is there's no place for recreation for the children in the development. And that's all I'm going to say.
And I can jump in there with the recreation. If that's really comes up with a condition, our basin is gigantic. It's way oversized. I feel I could probably fit something up, which I'll say is the upper portion of the plan, which is the east, at the tail end of that basin. We could fit a recreation in there, no problem at all.
One more question to address Bill's issue. There are sidewalks, so that would allow for bike riding?
That's correct.
Or scooter riding? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I live on a cul-de-sac myself. This is very similar to a cul-de-sac. Kids play in the street. That's just what they do. My child plays in the street every night.
To the point on the sidewalks, that was something. No, the
There's
sidewalk.
sidewalks. There are sidewalks, yes, on both sides.
Sidewalk connecting to existing sidewalk all the way through the development and then back up Bristol Oxford Valley Road. Big point of contention from the township. They asked for that. There's a significant right-of-way off of Bristol Oxford Valley Road for that to be provided.
At this time, I would like to have people who have party status to please address their issues.
So as counsel for the party, I have no questions of the witnesses based on the testimony they offered, but representatives who are with me may have some comment.
Do any of you have any comment that you would like to make? If so, please come to the podium. Please state your name, and you need to be sworn in.
So my name is Jason Lawson, Lawson. I am speaking on behalf of my mother-in-law who owns Marie's Cozy Corner. The developer has, tried their best to...
Excuse me, Mr. Lawson, you need to be sworn in first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I do.
Now you may continue.
Okay, so the developer has worked to try to make our concerns limited. But my mother still does have an issue, and really not an issue, but wants it on the record about the noise. We have been there 40 plus years. We have fundraisers. We have horseshoes 3 nights a week in the summer. We just want the people that are moving there to know that there's going to be noise. They did move it back from 15 feet to 100 and some feet. We're hoping that densens the sound with the buffer and stuff like that. Sound travels, however you want to do it. I hear the air horns from the railroad tracks where I live by the high school. It's 1.5 miles away. We just want the people that are moving there to know that they are going to a place that's a bar restaurant that's been there for 40 years and things go on there. And we don't want them upset because we want to be good neighbors and not upset our neighbors. The other issue that we have is the possibility, and it's more of a land development thing that we need to bring up at land development, but I'm sure Clace did the 7,000 square foot on little under an inch rain, 2.81 acres of rain, 1 inch, you're bringing about 59,000 gallons of water, 7,000 gallon square foot retention basin is going to hold around 52, 53. So, the only reason we're bringing this up now is because they are asking for impervious surface, and we want it on the record. So when we do go to land development and we voice our concerns, that they understand that, we don't want to get flooded out because we are at the bottom of the hill. But they are working their best to help our concerns as much as possible. They're putting in the berm, they're putting in the retention basin right there. The only thing is that if the retention basin isn't sufficient enough, once it overflows, it's going to come out because you can't bring that berm all the way out to the right-of-way of PennDOT, so you're not going to stop the water once it overflows coming down to our property. That's more of a land development thing. We're only bringing that up now because they are asking for the impervious surface. And then that's basically about it. That's all we wanted to say.
Thank you. The township solicitor, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, you can go ahead. Just come up to the mic. So, Township doesn't disagree with any representations that Mr. McHugh has made about his communications with the Township. We're not here to oppose, we're not here in support. What I would be asking the board to do, should you decide to grant approval, and this is also going to end up being a land development issue as well, but there is some question about the ultimate location of the lot line on this property. That'll be hammered out at land development, not really a concern for today, but I would just ask that any approval approval related to the setbacks, should the board be inclined to grant it, be contingent upon finalizing that lot line location at land development.
And that's something we're completely agreeable to. We acknowledge we need a lot line relocation plan, and those will be reviewed and approved by the township in due course, and we're agreeable to that condition.
Is there anything else from the township?
No other comments.
I'd like to open it up to public comment at this point. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to ask any questions or have concerns? Come forward. Please speak your name, spell it.
Tony Batiste, Toni, last name Battiste. There's 14 variances.
I'm sorry, you need to be sworn in.
Oh, sorry. I do.
Could we just get her address also?
Pardon?
Your address.
218 Gloucester. I am not a neighbor. But I have concerns when I'm driving through there.
That's understood. I just wanted to know where we were talking about in reference to that.
Okay. Yeah, as far as driving through there, I know sometimes when you get up to the top of North Oxford Valley where it meets the other Oxford Valley, there's a stop sign there, and you got to wait for all the incoming traffic that's coming off Route 1. So there is the probability that this is going to add to those traffic concerns. There are 14 variances to the requirements, and that seems like an awful lot for something that hasn't been built yet. And my concern is 3 years down the road, when people start moving in, and they've been there for now a few years, how many more variances are they going to ask for? Because maybe they want to put a generator in, which is going to add more permeable surface. Maybe they want to make something else. And again, it's going to mean more variances for the same property that's already got 14 of them. You said it's going to be 3 bedrooms. Well, if you have 3 people occupying those 3 bedrooms, then more than likely you've got 3 vehicles. So now you've already got how many vehicles? 60. And you don't have places for 60. And if some of those bedrooms have more than one person in, granted, some of them may be kids and not driving yet, but those kids grow up and they don't always move out. And you could end up having possibility of 6 cars for each place. You don't have the space for it. And my other concern, which I don't know that the township can ever do anything about yet, but there have been water restrictions within the township, and every time we approve more building, that lends the possibility of having less water for the current residents. And that's not necessarily going to get any better anytime soon. That was all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who has any concerns or would like to ask any questions at this time? All right, I don't see anybody.
Did you want to respond to anything that was said during public comment?
Just briefly, to Mr. Lawson's comments and concerns, we're very aware of the use that we have next door. We've tried to design the project to minimize that impact, and we're continuing, we don't want to have a noise problem either for our residents. So I think that's been a point that they've expressed from the very beginning. We're very aware of it. We've tried to address it to the best we can, and it's certainly, residents that are going to be purchasing those units they're 130 feet, 110 feet. They're obviously going to be aware of their surrounding area when they're purchasing their homes. So it's something that we're aware of. As to the parking concern raised by the last resident, we have 60 spaces actually. There's 2 driveway spaces for every unit, plus an additional 20 overflow parking, which meets the ordinance requirements. So, and plus each unit has a garage as well, which doesn't count towards the parking requirement.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to do an executive session.
the record. The record reflect that this board took an executive session to discuss the application. I believe the board has further questions they'll be posed to the applicant. Also, I just want to point out, so the record is clear, only the 5 voting members participated in the executive session. Mr. Matee did not participate in that. Thanks.
Do I have any other board comment?
Yeah, I just want to go back, and again, just, this may seem like we're asking the same questions over again.
No,
but
it's
I
fine.
want
Happy
to go
to-
to some,
Sure.
to clarify some points of order. So I understand what you've said multiple times, that this is not a use variance. Townhomes are approved.
Right.
I understand that the current township ordinance allows a density of 20 units per acre.
Correct.
And so 20 units in 2.1 acres, plus or minus a little property variance, is certainly within that, 10 units per acre. So in terms of use, got it.
Correct.
You've said a number of times that no matter how many units you made, whether it was 20 units per acre, 10 units per acre, 5 units per acre, there was testimony earlier that you did run up a plan for this property with only 10 units, and those 10 units would still have 7 variances required. That no matter what, in a reasonable use that would be economically feasible for the development of this property, that there would be some number of variances required.
Right. Our position that any townhome development is going to require variances in the plural, not just 1 or 2, multiple variances.
Right. Right, okay. So, and our, my concerns continue to be, and again, I appreciate the fact that you laid this out so nicely, is at the density you're at, yes, there are variances required, and some of them are, lot depth 90 feet versus 89.1 feet, pretty marginal.
Sure.
Variances. Other ones quite extensive, 20 feet setback versus 10 feet setback. Building coverage and impervious surface coverage, I think that, the majority, the vast majority of those, require a variance, and it's not just a couple percent, it's a good, 50% in addition.
So just to kind of expand on that, though, when
Okay.
we're talking, so the impervious, I know those numbers look kind of large and daunting. When you take a look at the track as a whole,
I understand.
the whole 2.18 acres, the impervious surface is like 55%.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
the numbers that you're seeing are for the individual small townhome lots.
Yep.
And the denominator on those numbers is, anywhere from 1494 to 3006 as the lot area. So the actual impervious area, the difference can jump significant
Can be a lot.
percentages by
Right.
adding just
Right.
really de minimis
Right.
additional impervious.
My concern is for the homeowner that purchases one of these lots and now wants to add a patio or a deck or, whatever. And now they're coming up and they're not starting at 60% or 50%, they're starting at 76% and asking for more, right? And they don't get the benefit of the 50% overall. They have to come and make a case for just their property.
Yep.
Yep. So, okay, so that's...
And that's something that's, I would say, is not uncommon in these type of developments, and that's why they're governed by a homeowners association or a declaration of condominium, which will have rules and regulations that are provided to each of them that are going to let them know, hey, can you put a deck on here? Can you put a generator? And if there's not going to be room for those things, that may be something that if we're unable to build it in. But also, as Mr. Clace testified, we've oversized the stormwater basin. And when you look at the tract as a whole, 55% is a reasonable number for an overall tract. There's probably still some room in the stormwater management that allows for maybe small additional imperviouses that will require relief from this board, most likely, for the lots that are over already. But there would be at least colorable arguments, and we can always work with the township, and if the zoning hearing board wants to say oversize the stormwater management even more to make sure you're accounting for additional impervious that is accessory to these homes, that would be something we probably could work with.
Right. Okay, so Thank you, I appreciate that. I wanted to give you a chance to, and again, this is part of your application. You provided, excerpts from, from the code about, what the, about what the, what the zoning board should have the authority to grant. And in there, there's a statement about reasonable use, right? That it should allow, that the authorization of the variance is therefore necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. So, a number of times, various members have asked, and I've asked about the density, and, 20 is less than 40, obviously, but where does reasonable use sort of start and end? Is 20 really the kind of minimal number of units that you can get into this property and have it be reasonable? Once it goes to 19, it's no longer reasonable? Or, I guess, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
To that point, I would answer that what the ordinance permits is 20 per acre, which would be 40 units on this. If that would be a permitted use of this property under the zoning ordinance. We've scaled it back to 20, and that's in response to a lot of comments and concerns. And I know that the kind of economic justification, is something that the board may not look at in a use variance, but in a dimensional variance, which is all that we're asking for here. Yep. There's the Hertzberg case. Those variances are of a lesser moment than a use variance. And the standard is somewhat relaxed when you're looking at it. And what you have here is the applicant, the developer, is agreeing to put in additional site improvements not required by the ordinance to address kind of external concerns. And this is the 20 units, I think, is certainly we think it's a reasonable use, but it also provides that balance between a successful development and an appropriate development, and also addressing external impact in the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have any other board comment at this time? I don't see any. Is there anybody who has party status, have anything else they would like to add or ask?
Thank you.
Anybody from the public have anything else that they would like to add? Anything else from the township? Thank you. Do I have a motion for this petition?
I'll make a motion. I move that the application of Night and Day Properties LLC be denied.
Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, if there's no second, the motion then would fail.
I actually am going to second that motion. I would like to pull the board. Aaron?
Sure. We'll start with Bill. Again, just to be clear, a yes is to approve the motion to deny. Bill?
Yes.
Nastasha?
No.
Chris?
No.
I'm actually a no. Lainey?
And I am a yes.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, that motion failed to pass.
Do I make a motion?
Yes, I'm going to make a motion to approve. I move that the application of Night and Day Properties LLC requesting the following dimensional variances from the following sections of the Falls Township zoning ordinance be granted to construct a 20-unit townhome community. Ready? 1, Section 209-16F in Table 1A, minimum lot requirements for HR district relating to the minimum lot requirements for townhouse and other single-family attached dwelling as follows. A, to permit a minimum lot area of 1,494 square feet, whereas 1,800 square feet is otherwise required. B, to permit a minimum lot depth of 83 feet, whereas 90 feet is otherwise required. C, to permit a side yard setback of 20 feet, whereas a minimum side yard setback of 20 feet is otherwise required for townhouse and units. D, to permit a rear yard setback of 15 feet, whereas a minimum rear yard of 30 feet is otherwise required. E, to permit a maximum building coverage of 48.2%, whereas a maximum building coverage of 30% is otherwise permitted. And F, to permit maximum impervious surface ratio of 81.4%, whereas maximum impervious surface of 60% is otherwise permitted. 2, Section 209-16F and Table 2, lot requirements for HR and AQ districts for the overall subject property as follows. A, to permit a minimum tract area of 2.18 acres, whereas 6 acres is otherwise required. B, to permit a minimum lot depth of approximately 285 feet, whereas 600 feet is otherwise required. C, to permit a perimeter yard of 15 feet, whereas 35 feet is otherwise required. D, to permit a minimum distance between buildings of 20 feet, whereas a minimum of 50 feet between buildings is otherwise required. E, to not provide outdoor recreation area, whereas 250 square feet of outdoor recreation area per dwelling unit is otherwise required. And F, to not provide indoor recreation area, whereas 10 square feet of indoor recreation area per dwelling unit is otherwise required. 3, Section 209-16.1, E1B, and 209-38.1.E, subsection 3, to provide less than the required 50-foot buffer yard for the overall tract. 4, Section 209-42.B, subsection 1, to not provide the required planting strip, whereas a clustered planting of dense plant material not less than 4 feet in height and 10 feet in width is otherwise required to be between off-street parking areas and any lot lines. At 99 Bristol Oxford Valley Road, Langhorne, PA 19047, and 119 Trenton Road, Fairless Hills, PA 19030, as depicted on the plans and in accordance with the testimony presented to the zoning hearing board, with the added the stipulation that the lot lines be finalized.
And if I can just make one clarification, the 1F of the motion, the maximum impervious is 84.5%. There was a typo in our chart. That's the maximum impervious is 84.5.
Okay?
Yeah, sure. I think what the solicitor was saying was the condition that we've agreed to is that the applicant will get approval from the township for a lot line relocation for 119 Trenton Road, and that this application is subject to the approval of that lot line relocation by the township and any additional relief that may be required.
Thank you.
One other item I want to clarify, Aaron, it sounded like you had said the side yard setback relief request was 20 feet. It's actually 10 feet.
Do I need to reread?
It's recorded it that way. The request was for 10 feet, not 20 feet.
That's correct. It's 10 feet where 20 feet is otherwise required.
Mr. Takita, are you referencing C?
I'm sorry, yes, it would be item C under table 1.
So what I hoped I read was to permit a side yard setback of 10 feet, whereas a minimum side yard setback of 20 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay. If I misspoke, my apologies. To permit a side yard setback of 10 feet, whereas a minimum side yard setback of 20 feet is otherwise required for townhouse and units.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I can try. Do we still have Bill?
No.
Bill's a no. Thank you. Nastasha?
Yes.
Chris? Yes. I'm a yes. Laney?
Petition has been granted, you'll receive something from the township.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.